This right here is a fish. A fish is always going to tell you that they'll get back to you, that they'll buy someday, then maybe when their finances are right and they have the bandwidth, they'll buy from you. Most don't. This is a whale. A whale will tell you, sure, send the invoice. Pays on time, pays in full. It's great. I built a business only talking to whales to $100,000 per month. And frankly, it was really enjoyable because I had more active clients than likes per post, and I have like 200,000 followers. So, what I'm going to show you today is something that I call the whale brand. The whale brand are 5 posts, 1%. So, see, hear, sense, touch, smell that you can use to post to then attract whales to your brand. So it was a paid workshop that I ran in my community back in the day when I used to run it, and hopefully it serves you now. Enjoy.
Whale brand. Offers die, tactics die, best practices die, templates die. But brand is eternal. If brand isn't the most evergreen asset I've got and the most powerful one, it's pretty close. It's the foundation of every offer I craft and every move I make. And if there's one thing I want to be solid at, it's brand. So going kind of back to the past on the businesses I've started. I started SaaS with Tweet Hunter, done for you with ghostwriting, do it yourself, like I had a few courses. And now it's my drawn with you, drawn from you business. And they all had some relative level of success. Even though, admittedly, and I still do, I'm figuring it out as I go. And underneath it all, the Likes and Cash brand was always there. Like it was always kind of present in some way, shape, or form. And when I understand how do we make this relevant to you, is we want to have a brand strong enough so that today you could pivot to becoming an Airbnb expert and still have people follow you. And this is not a random example. This actually happened with a friend. He had a couple million followers on the trading niche. And one day he decided, trading as in like stocks. One day he decided, I'm going to pivot. And he pivoted to Airbnb expert, like from trading stocks and crypto to Airbnb expert. And I asked him, was it hard to transition? And he said, no, not really, because the people were there for me. And I thought that was gangster. And I think that is how strong your brand should be. You should be strong enough so that you can pivot. And this becomes more relevant if they love you. Because if you're willing to lead, people are willing to follow. Problem is, a lot of people are not because they don't have a strong enough brand and they just kind of react. Now, brand, as I define it, has 5 components. One for every sense that we've got as a human. So I'd like you to think of your brand as kind of a living being. So it has hear, smell, touch, taste, and see. So hear, what calling do you hear? What calls you? Smell, what do you tolerate and not tolerate? Touch, which tools allow you to get the job done? Taste, what's your taste like? And by this, I mean like aesthetic and world. And see, what does the world look like through your eyes? What do you see that other people don't see? What's hidden in plain sight? What's obvious to you, but other people don't really understand this? Now, each of these are something that you kind of always keep reminding people of. Brand building is like eating. It's not like you eat once and then you're done. It's something that you have to keep doing in order to maintain it because this is, again, a living being. This is alive and you need to keep maintaining it or it will die. So that's why a lot of people struggle with the idea of brand because we want things that are stable, that are always there. But brand, even though it's an evergreen asset, you cannot let it die. You have to keep feeding it in order to grow. But once you begin with brand, there are 5 sorts of posts that make these kind of give strength to each of these senses. There's a hear-based post, a smell-based post, a touch-based post. So during the whale brand, we will craft them and we will post them because if we just craft them, that is another way of saying we're just gonna nail down Nathan this. This is not happening on this. We're gonna craft them and then we're gonna post them. And we're gonna do this daily so that at the end, you will have a stronger semblance of a brand than if you did it today. If you're spending more than 2 days on one of each post that you have to make on these five, then you're wasting time and you're not making things happen. Just posting it, the act of it will do more for you than getting it wrong or right. As you'll see later, it's just more like you just gotta grab something to eat to stay alive. Like the whole thing here is don't just stay in the store thinking, oh, what are the best things? Just eat something and then go on with your life because if not, you will die. Brand works the same way. So we will craft it and we will post them. This is where these assets will live temporarily. And I've been very adamant about this. The asset goes here so you can link it. But you gotta check the boxes and I set it free. I posted it. Because if not, they're not gonna do anything for you. I love this quote by Lobo, who's my mindset slash life coach. He says, thinking don't make you rich, bro. And I took that personally because I was overthinking too much. And he's like, thinking don't make you rich. Like, yeah, that's true. So we're gonna pose these things. We're gonna begin with number one, which is here. That's the first sense we're gonna start with because I think that's the highest ROI one. It is also one of the more challenging ones, but you can handle it. Number one, here, what goal calls you? So content around a goal that matters to you has some of the highest energy because it demonstrates you're a person of action and not a person of reaction. This is a big deal nowadays. There's too many people of reaction. They wait to see what's happening in the market. What are these people going to do? What are the trends? And then they react. These make them, by definition, not the main character. If you're not going first and you're not acting first, you are, by definition, you don't have main character energy. If you want a strong brand, you need main character energy. There's very few people of action, people who cap into the market and are willing to go first. And these people, I call them the protagonists. We all know some accounts that have this sort of like special aura, right? They have like such strength and we just kind of feel drawn to them. And it's because they're almost always first to everything. They're the first to invent, the first to try things, and because they're willing to go first, they're the first to reap their rewards. And it's not that they're first because they have a special aura. Maybe they're like that now. But they built that special aura because they were willing to go first. I think of this analogy that I really like as in people are trying to cross the street and it's empty, but the light is green. And everybody's like thinking, should I go? Should I not? But then one guy crosses and then everybody crosses. Like that guy has the main character energy. He has the aura. He has the strength. He has the brand out of that situation. The thing is, how do we extrapolate this to actually real life and actually building audiences and monetizing them? To really nail the point down, I love this video. I've shared it a few times, but we're gonna rewatch a piece of it, which is best explained by Frank in House of Cards. So I'm gonna share that today. If you don't, I want to make sure that I can share audio on this. But if you haven't seen House of Cards, basically, well, of course, Zoom changed where the button was. But basically, the guy's a villain. He's the bad guy. And he's being called to a trial, right? Oh, there you go. Share sound. And in the trial, he's being accused of course, being guilty. And the guy says, well, actually, yeah, I am guilty. So let's
But you wanted a
this explains protagonism and how you should think about your brand, in my opinion, the best way.
the very rules that you Not done, ladies and gentlemen. You accuse me of breaking the rules, and I tell you, I am playing by the rules. The very rules that you and I all agreed upon. The very rules that you and I all wrote together. So, yes, I'm guilty as hell, but then so are all of you. Yes, the system is corrupt, but you wanted a guardian at the gate like me, and why? Because you know I will do whatever it takes. And you have all enjoyed it, been party to it, and benefited by it. Oh, don't deny it, you've loved it. You don't actually need me to stand for anything, you just need me to stand. To be the strong man, the man of action. My God, you're addicted to action. And slogans. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what I do, just as long as I'm doing something, you're happy to be along for the ride. And frankly, I don't blame you. With all the foolishness and indecision in your lives, why not a man like me? I don't apologize. In the end, I don't care whether you love me or you hate me, just as long as I win. The deck is stacked. The rules are rigged. Welcome to the death of the age of reason.
So this is relevant. He says, it doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what I do. Just as long as I'm doing something, you're happy to be along for the ride. And this is protagonism at its peak. This is you just being willing to lead. I have this journey. I have this goal. Are you going to follow me or not? And often people do. Like, you have followers. And in order for people to follow you, you need to be willing to lead. And I love that he said, with all the foolishness and indecision in your lives, why not a man like me? Because sometimes, let's say you're the only person who knows how to get around in a country, right? And you're like a tour guide. If you end up taking them through a place, maybe that road was longer. It wasn't optimal. It wasn't the best. But at the end, you got to the destination. Then who cares, right? As long as you're leading, you give people that sense of, okay, he is, or that person is the safe option. And now there's a lot of uncertainty. If you're willing to lead, even though it's not the correct, exact same point, people will follow. And if you're wrong, so be it. People will still follow you. If you fail, who cares? People will still follow you. Because that's what they want. I told a client the other day, your brand is, you're thinking about this in a very masculine way. Like, I asked them, why do people get a result? Why do people follow you? Why do people buy from you? And the masculine approach to that is because I can get them a result. Like, very simple, very, very cut and dry. And yes, that is part of why people buy from you, but people also buy from you because you are the safe option, because you're the leader, because you're willing to take the wheel and move. A big part of why people buy from you and why brands are strong, it's because these people, you know, they're going to go first. So it's safe to follow. And that's why I really like this speech. It demonstrates protagonism content in a really good way. And the way I kind of make the distinction, it's there's sellers in the market and there's protagonists in the market. So sellers don't have a calling. They don't hear a voice. It's just like they're kind of waiting to see what happens and then they react, right? Where protagonists have a clear calling. They know this is where I'm going. They have a narrative. And this is the narrative that I took to 100K a month, which was, I'm going to get to 100K a month. Sellers think of social media like social media. Protagonists think of their social media like Netflix. Like, they have characters, there's plots. And if you follow me, then you know a few of these. I've talked to you about Nail Down Nathan earlier. Who am I married to? It's the Ukrainian. Who's a very important person in my life? It's Abuelita. Last 2 weeks, I was in Montenegro, and I made sure everybody knew. Because I am the main character in my world. And you should have that main character energy if you want to have a strong brand. A seller creates from scratch, right? A protagonist updates He's like, I'm 10% of the journey, 20% of the journey. This is what happened, right? It's a narrative, it's a plot. A seller has indecisiveness, whereas a protagonist leads and is decisive. A seller has very little skin in the game because he's just making offers and that's it. Like he's just giving free value and then, okay, well, feel free to steal, right? Whatever. They love using that word. Whereas a protagonist actually has much more skin in the game because if you lose, then everybody sees it. It's not as, the consequences are not as big as you think, but they do exist. So this was my post of a protagonist post, and this is the one we're going to be making today. Now, if you have posted it, then fantastic. Don't change it. If you haven't, then today's a good idea. Today's a good day to write an update. How are you along in the journey? Have you kept people on the you show? Are they tuned in? So for me, it was the plan to make 100K a month profit with 3 hours a day. And for an entire year, that was pinned. And I said, this is my story. This is my plot. This is where I'm going. Because with all the foolishness and indecision in your lives, why not a man like me? Why not a man that's willing to take action and move? And maybe today is a good day for you to craft that same one episode, episode 1 of Today We Start. And if you already did, it's this is today's episode. This is what's happening in my life. I'm leading and I'm willing to follow my calling. I do not care if you follow it or not. And that's what makes people follow. Because people are attracted to people who will do things regardless if they have buy-in or not. Being a protagonist though seems risky at first because if you succeed, everybody sees it. And if you fail, also everybody sees it. And the perceived risk of what if I don't get there? What if the goal isn't exactly right? Is why people hesitate to become one. And they believe that if they fail, that's the end of them and their brand, which is actually the opposite. Like Rocky is a perfect example. Rocky lost his first fight and everybody showed up to watch the second one because people love characters more than outcomes. The fact that you're willing to try to win, whether you win or lose never really mattered. You can craft a plot in which you win either way. So I'll use myself as an example. If I didn't get to 100K a month in profit, if I didn't, wait, hold on. No, if I did get to 100K a month in profit, I would have said, hey guys, I did it. Let's go. If I didn't, then I'd be like, hey guys, sorry, I failed to build this business, but look at these wonderful things that I got along the way. I'm going to get there anyway, but now we're updating the time frame. And people will forgive that. People will understand that because they've been party to it and benefited by it. They've enjoyed the journey because you were willing to lead. Again, people don't buy from you just because you have results. Yes, that is important, but also because you are the man. Sellers can lose because they're playing by the rules. Protagonists can't because you made up the rules. It's the you show. You write it. A great example of this is Breaking Bad, Walter White, right? At the end, you don't know if you should hate him or love him. You don't know if, he started on a very different journey than the one he ended with, but we still watched it. And it all starts with one post. Arguably, one of the 2 most important ones we'll go over the boot camp. And it is the protagonist post. Again, if you posted it, then an update is due. Keep people updated on it. And I neglected this for a while. I just posted it and I said, okay, that's cool. Right? But then what about episodes 2, 3, 4, 5, and 17? People want to keep, like, it is such a huge waste to declare a goal and then not update people on it. So your protagonist post is your call to adventure. It's the post you have pinned for the duration of said adventure. It's meant to be constantly quoted, referenced, and updated. And if you see how I treated this, so I made the post and I'll give you the pieces on it. And I kept updating people on it. Update, 25% of the way. Update, this much closer. Update, I fucked up and I'm going solo. Update, I'm debt free. Update, I'm clear on now what the code is that I'm going to follow. Update, now I have a model. Hey, here's what's happening in September. It's literally a show. So the protagonist post or update has 3 parts. And number one is the goal. So about the goal is it has to genuinely excite you. And this is where the real fun comes in. If you're not having fun, then they will feel it. And then it will feel manipulative. And then you're not going to get what you want out of this. If it doesn't excite you, it will create dissonance and then you'll quit. And it's that quitting that makes people want to be like, screw this guy, right? You lose the aura. You can fool the audience, but you can't fool yourself. And eventually it will catch up to you. So you have to genuinely want this. What do you want? And if you don't know what you want, what's something that's directionally accurate? So how much money do you want to make? For me, it was this, right? How many people do you want to help? I want to help this many people get a six-pack. How much money do you want to capture? For example, let's say you're in kind of the wealth niche, but you don't do the exact same thing that you sell. So you can say, this is an example from e-commerce. Create 5 million every month for my clients and capture 50K from it, right? It's framed on what's in it for them. Or you can be straight up selfish, which was what's in it for you. And one of the cash creators is like, I'm in this because I want to buy a private jet. And that's his shtick. It's like, okay, well, that's a private jet project. Again, don't be nailed down, Nathan. Leaders lead even when they're not 100% sure of the path. The question that matters more than the specifics here is, does it excite you? And sometimes people will ask me, what do I think about their protagonist post? And to me, that is the wrong question. The question is, what do you think about your protagonist post? Do you like it? Do you want this? Because if not, you're going to quit. So you have to actually want it. Again, if it's directionally accurate, that matters more because then you can always create a plot like Walter White and change mid-season and think, I've been getting clear on the goal and now I see it more. Now I see that I actually want this part of it. Again, people will forgive you if you're willing to lead, but people won't if you keep hesitating. So number one is the goal. Does it excite you? Do you want it? It's okay if it's selfish. Number two is you've given the goal, right? I'm going to get here. Now, what's the plan? And this is when you broad stroke it for them. And a smart way to introduce people into your offers in the future is this is a good place to introduce the levels of your offer shell because it lets them know what they can expect so it won't surprise them. Like people are maybe hesitant about, do I sell or not? Do I sacrifice my goodwill or not? Which, by the way, I don't think selling kills your goodwill. I think that's the wrong correlation, but some people do. But if you put the rules up front, you can't complain about being punched if you willingly enter the boxing gym. So just tell people, this is a boxing gym and these are the ways you're gonna get punched. So for me, I said, I'm gonna grow socials my way. This is what's happening. Every day, I'm gonna invite you to join my newsletter. And inside my newsletter, I'm gonna sell to you every day. Done. The rules are there. And then every time you sell after that, will not eat at your goodwill because you told people this is what's going to happen. You cannot complain about being punched if you're at the boxing gym. So you update people on these are the offers that I'm going to make. And you can map out your offer shell like that. Low tier, mid ticket, high ticket. And if you just have one, then you just have one and you update it later on because the path is revealed as you walk it. And three, and this is kind of the part that attracts whales most, which is the principles. People stick to people who stick to their principles. So you will have a stronger brand if you share the set of principles that you simply refuse to violate. Batman is an example here. Again, notice how little tactics it has and how much like just, I want you to get you to think like a Netflix character and a show person. We know that Batman doesn't kill. He could, but he chooses not to. and that makes us respect the character. When you have a set and a code that you're not willing to violate, then that is extremely attractive to whales, because to a fish, it's just about the outcome. They just want the thing. To a whale, they've already tried it and they're frustrated with what happened. So it's not just about the outcome, but the how you're going to get there. And this is when you show yours. So for me, it's I don't do maybes, I'm not going to do this, and I'm going to cap the spots. Now I'm getting more clear on what it was, but back then I wasn't, which is okay. And by the way, if you don't do what your clients do, like for example, fitness, show the principles you'll have for them. So like no crash dieting, no more than this much in cardio. I'm not gonna get them to track calories. Let's say you do e-commerce. We're not gonna jump in fats. Somebody else here does trading. He's like, we're gonna follow profits with FI, profits over profits, like prophecy, right? We're gonna focus on the money and not in where people say the money is. So when you say these are the rules, then it makes people really attracted to you. And that's it. Your goal, your steps, and your rules. That is the protagonist post. Maybe it's time for you to update yours if you've already done it. Has something around this changed? Has the goal changed? Have the steps changed? Have your rules somehow, maybe you added a few, or you're clear on, hey, I'm not willing to do this anymore. It's a good time, it's a good day to update people into this is the me show. And that is it. So the first whale asset we're going to be creating is the protagonist post. And what we want to do with this is we want to shift from seller to protagonist by posting your protagonist post today. So you're going to see my examples here. You can see it in this doc. Now I'm going to share it with you. It'll be on the portal as well. And this is where it lives. So craft your post, make it directionally accurate, and set it free today. It should make you a little nervous, and that's fine, because you actually want this. Now we're just putting the intention out, and that's what matters, right? At the beginning, Rocky just wanted to get some self-respect, and then he actually wanted to win. And then some dude killed his best friend, and then he wanted to kill that dude, right? So it's okay if it changes. But this is the first one, your calling. And it is the highest ROI post of the whale bootcamp. So post it. Part 2 of the whale brand bootcamp. So today is the second sense. Yesterday, we went over here, meaning what is your calling? What do you hear? What's calling you? Today is about smell. What smells do you tolerate? What smells do you not tolerate? People stick around with people who stick to their principles. Having a code that you do not violate under any circumstance is an extremely attractive behavior to whales. Just having a set of kind of your personal code of conduct that you don't violate. That's because for low quality prospects, they just kind of want the outcome. They don't really care how it's achieved. But high quality prospects care about the way the outcome will be achieved. To them, it's not just about the destination, it's also about how. Because they've already tried other stuff, and now they're not as fascinated for the promise or the goal. They just kind of want to know, am I going to have to do the same stuff again? Because I'm not willing to do that. So the philosophy and showing people what do you tolerate and not tolerate is kind of if it's not the main whale-bait driver, it is like one of the top 3. One of the best ways to do that is through your code post. So this is the second asset we're going to be creating inside of the bootcamp. So the code post is best enunciated by you filling in the blank to the following sentence. The first rule of is you do not talk about You probably already can fill up the blanks here, right? So it's like the first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. So think about that scene, about what it meant. And if you can visualize it, it's like everybody's just nodding. And everybody's looking at the guy who's saying it, Tyler, and they're like, okay, yes, I will do what you say. So your code post is your equivalent of that scene. It's the first rule of this brand is we do these things and we do not do these other things. It introduces the viewer or the audience to a set of rules that explains this is how we do things around here. It makes every interaction inside more fruitful. And it makes outsiders who resonate with these rules to want to be part of it. Because we all have this need, some have more of it, some have less of it, to belong. So when we create these codes, for example, this one, the content creator versus the cash creator, it creates that difference, that different world between the normal world and your world. And it makes the people inside conform to a certain behavior, so it leads to better, kind of just better interactions inside of your world. But it also it makes people curious about what is happening behind the fence. They want to join in on the fun. So it is as simple as you being clear on this is what I believe in. So for me, as a cash creator, which is an identity that is completely made up, and fairly, like to be fair, I did feel like the name was a little bit cringe when I first came up with it. But as you know, it started evolving, I thought, okay, maybe this has legs. So it's my set of rules. The content creator sells with calls, I do it without it. I don't create to get paid, I get paid to create. I don't chase prospects. I don't chase prospects. Instead, I don't do maybes. I don't have an irresistible offer, but my offer is clear. I don't give away value. I charge for value and I give insight. I don't post fish bait. I post whale bait. And for me, being clear on the first rule of Fight Club is it creates this. It signifies that I'm a man of principles. And often this is extremely attractive to whales because it means that this is not your first rodeo. For a beginner, it's just about just giving everything. They don't really have any rules. But when you do, it makes you so much more, well, it makes your brand stronger. So crafting yours, and this is going to be a really fast one today because it is a lot of doing, not a lot of thinking, and it's more feeling. What do you believe in? What do you tolerate? What do you not tolerate? What's acceptable or unacceptable in your world? What are you willing to do or not do in order to get to the goal that you described in your protagonist post? What's the modus operandi? Meaning, like, what is the normal way things are done around here? And what do you do differently? These matter because whales are going to look at your thing and think, okay, that promise, I've seen that 10,000 times. But when they look at the code, then they understand there's something more to this. This person has thought about something else than just a book and offers. You know what I mean? So it's important that you say these and you make it tangible. And one of the easiest ways to do that is through your code post. Now, this could take one of two forms. It could be you could contrast it. Like for me, this was really natural to me, right? Because it's the cash creator versus the content creator. But I have another one, which is the idea seller. So now how you notice how I made my pivot. So I became more about let me sell my ability to spot big ideas in people more than the cash creator way, right? So for me, this wasn't a contrast. It was just a manifestation of what I believe in. So people can copy what I do and what I say, but nobody can copy how I think. My ideas and my fair advantage. My job is getting results for the clients that my big idea gets to me. If my big idea isn't getting me clients and opportunities, then it's not a big idea. Likes are cool, but likes in cash, and so on and so on. So I'm laying out the rules of the game, as in when we work together, and I've told people, I will not coach you. I don't do emotional support. Why? Because I don't think you need it. You don't need emotional support. You need a patent for your idea. And once the rules are on the wall, people conform to it. And because they're clear, it incites other people who are not part of it to be like, okay, what's happening in there? And if they resonate with the code, the only way they can get more of it is through you because you invented it. You are, in a way, I am the ultimate cash creator. What does that mean? Nothing, because I made it up, right? But the thing about ideas and identities and these kind of codes is that we don't believe in them because they're real. They're real because we believe in them. So if these are strong to you and they're deep down to your core, actually the things you believe in, you do tolerate, you don't do, you do, then it'll hit so much stronger. A recurring theme you can find that we've been talking about in the whole whale brand cohort is that none of this is manipulation. Of course, some sort of marketing needs to, we want people to take action. But the whole brand thing, it only works, unless you're a psychopath, it only works if it's honest. So that's why I'm so careful when people ask me feedback on the code or the protagonist post because I don't want to limit your honesty. I don't want to think this smells like JK. This is the color of JK. I want it to be yours. So that's why it's important that when you're stuck on anything we're gonna do with the Well Brand Bootcamp, you answer the question not with what is optimal or what is persuasive, but how can I be more honest and really nail down to your core? Because if not, people will feel it. And if people feel it, your brand will suffer. So this is gotta be honest and this is gotta be you. Doesn't work if it's not like that. 3 common mistakes that people make when crafting their code posts is number one is thinking you need a counterpart, like you need somebody to contrast it with. And the reality is you don't. Good marketing creates contrast, 100% true. However, being honest about your uniqueness and philosophy often creates enough. So if you don't have a straight up counterpart, you don't need to force it. So don't think you need to. And this is why I included this example so you can see one without it. 2, if you do have a counterpart, don't roast them. A common mistake I see here is people say, this person has no boundaries and they do everything wrong, whereas I have very clear boundaries and I do everything right. Okay, yeah, sure. Great persuasion. This will raise suspicion in the reader if you try to roast them. Instead, show how you do things differently and let them connect the dots. So I'm not saying that I have a better sales process than a content creator, although I do. But I am saying that you do sales calls. I do not. This is not a roast. This is a fact. I'm not saying that you have that I have a better audience than you. I'm saying your audience is full of peers. My audience is full of prospects. See the difference? You cannot roast the other counterpart because then the whole thing falls apart. Then it feels manipulative. All you can do is point at things that are happening, point at facts that cannot be denied. And then people will make the contrast on their own. They will connect the dots on their own. So that's mistake number 2. The first one is thinking you need a counterpart. The second one is if you have one, which is fair, don't roast them. Simply point at the things you do differently. And the third one is not staying on topic. So they don't need to know about your political inclinations. A code is a place for you to keep it business casual, for you to talk about the things you do around your business or around your method. They don't need to know how much you think that Gen Z is messed up or your political inclinations. Stay on topic. So you don't need to include every single philosophy. Probably that's for later. I'm going to show you that in what was it? In taste. But for now, this is not a place where the code, this doesn't belong in the code. What belongs in the code is things related to your business and your method, not your worldview. It has an important place in brand, but it's just not here. Okay? And 3. A note on this is if you want to make it stronger, you don't need to. It is not a requirement. But code on steroids is when you give stuff an identity, when you call it something. So an identity is not required to have a strong brand, but it does make it easier to remember. And things that are easy to remember are typically more persuasive. So I'll give you an example. So I recently got into these like essences. So it's like things you squeeze and they have like a really sweet taste. And I was cutting weight. And you know when you're cutting weight, everybody's master chef, right? So you try to come up with like the weirdest things. And I used to put like the milk essence on just plain water. So it would like with through a lot of cope, it would taste like milk, but it was just water, right? And I stopped doing it because one day the Ukrainian just called it, "Oh, you're gonna have your sausage water again?" And I'm like, "Oh, fuck, this I can't do this anymore. You ruined it for me, right?" So when you make things easy to remember by giving them names, they're typically more persuasive. And then I love this quote, which is, all models are wrong, but some models are useful because a model is never going to be like completely right? We're just trying to summarize reality in a few variables. But some models are useful. And a useful model for you to come up with the identity and big ideas in general, is to combine the old with the new. So, what is the old term that everybody knows about in your world, right? So in mine, let me tell you a few. So it's offer, it's content creator, it's goodwill, nurturing, lead generation, that kind of stuff, right? So what's terms that everybody is familiar with that are old? How do you think about that differently? And that is the new. And you combine it. And you can see how I do this in my own marketing. So the old term is the offer shell, the offer suite, right? Or just offers. I combine it with how I think about that differently with it, which is access is easier to sell than stuff. So then the offer shell is born. You can see it all as well as I got a few examples here. So the old is the athlete, right? So it's just the person who trains. A new way to think about this is the athlete who believes in both conditioning and strength. And so the hybrid athlete is born. This is what Nick Bayer popularized, the hybrid athlete, the guy that runs and lifts. For me, it's the content creator, right? That's the old term. The new term is I do an emphasis on making money. So it's the cash creators board. The old term for something else, it's somebody with a go-getter attitude, right? He's a go-getter. But somebody came up with the topic that actually giving gets you more than getting. So then the go-giver was created. And if you go to Amazon and you look up go-giver, it's got like 7 different books, which means that it resonated and it sold a lot of copies. So the old term is the dad giving financial advice. The new term is, hey, my dad didn't teach me this stuff. So the rich dad was born. Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. The old term is nomads traveling everywhere. The new term is you can make money from a laptop now. So now you're the digital nomad, right? Like it could have easily be called the laptop nomad just as well. So again, all models are flawed, but some models are useful. Use your own experience of the old and the new, and use me to help you out to craft yours. If you don't have yours now, however, again, don't let it stop you from posting your code. A frame of this is what's true for me is enough. It will suffice. You can give it an identity later. If you notice my post, first I created well, when I posted my protagonist post, I think it was called Likes in Cash. Like the program was called Likes in Cash. Later I became clear on the cash creator identity, and that's when I actually posted it. So you can see how a brand, again, it's like eating. It's a living organism. It grows. It's not something you set up once. It's something you keep feeding in order to, well, for it to grow. And that is the asset of today. So short one today, but demonstrate how people in your world behave, what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not with your code post. And You can use any of these if you like as a template, as in you can have a contrasting example, or you could have a this is what I believe in example answering these questions. What do you believe in? What do you tolerate and not tolerate? What's acceptable to you? What is your method? What's a normal way of doing things? And why do you do it differently? What are you willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice? And what are you not? So you can craft these and post it. This is the second addition to the out of the 5. This is smell. What are you tolerating and what are you not willing to tolerate? And you will find that by posting these, often whales come out because they're like, I resonate with the way you do things. And you will find that a lot when you're clear on these, or at least when you post them. All right, short call today, folks. As always, a pleasure. Good to talk to you. Tomorrow, touch. We talk about your tools. Now, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek on this, and I think it's important that you understand it. So, and this is why I don't believe in niching down. And I don't believe that niches are a relevant place to put your brain cells on. It's because when people have problems, they don't think in, I need somebody who solves this problem. They think in tools. So, an example. When people run out of battery, they don't think, oh, I really need somebody who sells chargers. They think, I need a charger. The tool or asset pops in mind before the human does. Think about this. So if the store that sells chargers has a, this is for techie entrepreneurs and this is for gay mothers, do they care? No, they just care about, do you have a charger or not? So it doesn't really matter if you want to tailor to this person or that person, because that's not what they're buying for you anyway. That's not the reason. It's because you have a charger. So when we see ourselves not as I tailor to this person or that person, but it's just I am a person with tools and whoever wants them can buy them, you end up making a lot more money because you're not limited by, oh, who might this be helpful for? But instead, this is what the tool does. It puts an emphasis on product and not people. And usually, if you do product well, you end up getting a lot more people. So that's tomorrow. We're going to talk about touch and how to develop your specific tools that people can use. So that's a fun one. I said that the here post was the most profitable one. It's true. The touch one from tomorrow is the second most profitable one. But I wanted to do an easy one today to give you some buffers. So today we're going to do smell and your code post. So post it up and I'll see you on the next one. 3 out of 5, touch. What tools do you use? So this has to do with a lot of, I think this is the most fun part of the Whale Brand Bootcamp, personally. So a little bit of pre-requirements of why this is important. There are 5 levels of market awareness, as that's kind of the consensus, and I think it's a useful model. And I believe that they all must be addressed differently. Now, if you're here, you probably are in the product aware category. Now, the product aware is when you sell to people that know that your product exists, but aren't completely aware of everything that it does, or aren't convinced of how well it does it. So this is a lot of coaching, this is a lot of fitness, this is a lot of people who already kind of are familiar with the solutions and they're getting bombarded with pitches every day. And they're not really looking for something that's like better or more impressive. They're looking for some sort of difference. In this market, people have a goal and know some common paths to that goal. Like they know what they need to do, but they're confused about which is the best one. More than better, more than a stronger promise, they want a different path to get to that promise. Enhancing the goal, making the goal better, like for example, some people are like lose 20 pounds in 10 weeks, right? And then somebody else like lose 21 pounds in 10 weeks. And then somebody promises, for example, make 10K in a month, right? And then somebody's like, if you don't make 10K in a month, then I'm gonna fly you out to Bali and give you a round trip. So these things don't do much at this level of awareness because that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's enhancing the promise more and more. At this stage, it's more attractive to offer them a different path. And this is when the unique mechanism comes into play. So I like this visual to represent it. Everybody's blue. You don't make the goal cooler. You just offer red. Your unique mechanism is that red thing. And a fancy way to describe the unique mechanism, and we're going to get really deep into semantics today because it's important that you understand the nuance, is your unique mechanism are the tools you use to do generic things in a unique way. So we're going to get deeper into each of these bolded letters. Tools, generic, and unique. Your unique mechanism are the tools that you use to do generic things in a unique way. In a product-aware market, enhancing the promise will likely be met with resistance. So your goal is to keep the goal generic. However, highlight the unique mechanisms that you've taken yourself or with others. You do this by creating intellectual property, which is another way of saying name your tools. You can see why I do a lot of this. I capitalize words that shouldn't, like offer, shell, tools, customer, client, big idea, model, cash creator, content creator. I capitalize it because I like giving names to things, because when you give names to things, you make them more persuasive. Naming your tools adds strength to your brand because people think about tools before they think about humans. The clearest example is this that I could come up with. When people run out of battery, they don't think, I really need somebody who can sell me a charger. They think, I need a charger. The tool or the asset that does the thing that they want pops up in mind before the human does. This is very relevant. And this is why I believe a more useful frame than thinking that you're a coach or a consultant is you're just a person with tools. Naming your tools aligns with how your audience naturally buys and is thus more persuasive. So if you notice how I use my language in emails, pay attention to these things. I don't say I upsold a client because that's what everybody's doing. I'm in what was it? Product aware market. So I want to make my stuff feel different. I don't want to enhance the goal. I want to make the path to the goal different. So I don't say I upsold a client. I say these people moved up one level of the offer shell. That implies that there is some sort of understanding and different path to the rest. I don't say my method. I say the Lexing Cash model. I don't say my client. I say cash creator or idea seller. I don't say, and I capitalize common nouns like customers, clients, big idea. This matters because naming things creates a world and creates pull. So I think that this is like, if you take something today, is reframe the way you think about yourself and what you sell. You're not a coach, you're not a consultant or a mentor. And I don't think you should be calling yourself that. You're just a person with tools that do things. If you run out of battery on your phone, do you care whether the people selling chargers are a vegan charger company, whatever, or they're mom and pop, or they're all painted pink? It doesn't really matter. You don't think about who this is for. You think, what does this do? So by aligning yourself more towards, okay, this is how people think, therefore this is how I will sell, you set yourself up for success because you're aligning how you sell with how people buy. They don't buy coaches, consultants, or mentors. They buy tools because that's the first thing they think about. So see yourself as a person with tools. Now, develop them. And one story that I tell often and that I'd like you to take from this is one of the most persuasive things you can bring is a flashlight. So I say this example of, let's say there's a really dark hallway and there's a diamond at the end. You can't see the path towards that. One guy says, hey, there's a diamond, there's a really nice offer, and I know you want it. Trust me, let's go. I'll take you there. I don't know. You don't know if there's snakes or if the path is bad, right? Whereas the other guy says, hey, I got a flashlight, turns it on, shows you the path. He reveals that he knows it, and then he walks it with you. So who would you choose? Probably B. Because people want a sense of safety as they do things. Buying from you and your product implies risk. What if it doesn't work out? And a billion other excuses, right? But when you include a flashlight and you can demonstrate that there is a path to get to the goal, then that makes you so much more desirable than everybody else. The problem is people don't do this. They just say, hey, here's an outcome, here's a goal, and my client took the jump and look how happy she is. Now, therefore, you should trust me with your money and we'll take you there. But that's not how people make decisions. They need to feel safe. I went to a dinner recently and there were a few folks there. One of them was a relationship coach. And she works with folks like who are, all the way from single, all with not that much money, to people who run multi-million-dollar companies and their relationships are a disaster. And I found her points really interesting, and I asked her, okay, so what is like one of the common things that you see among couples, right? So what is the main thing that you feel like make these couples stick together and make a relationship work? And she gave me a really enlightening answer, which was, listen, men, women, what they both want at the end of the day is they both want to feel safe. A relationship thrives on safety and dies without it. And offers work very similarly. You need to be the safe option for people to pick you. And paths and flashlights allow you to be that safe option because you're not asking them to make a scary jump. You're demonstrating the way. And you do demonstrate this way through developing your own tools. So, how do you do this? Number one is you present a plan that they're used to. So I'm going to do an example here with fitness. The path that everybody knows to weight loss, and the path that is true, is caloric deficit equals weight loss. Very simple, right? But this feels obvious, and it is, but people need to feel understood before they're willing to be led. Demonstrate you understand their current plan by showing it to them. Every industry has this. So in mine, it's followers to leads to clients, right? On fitness, it's like nutrition, sleep, and training, right? So you present the plan that they're used to. This is the easiest part, if you will. 2, add nuance. So people know that they need to be at a caloric deficit to lose weight. Everybody knows this. Yet 1 in 8 people are obese. So why? Right? What's happening? People already know what they need to do. Adding knowledge doesn't serve them or you. Side note, this is why value-based content works so slowly. Because it keeps people in the same loop. They're just getting knowledge, and it doesn't work. However, instead of adding knowledge, see yourself as you're adding nuance. Adding nuance is much more effective and more persuasive. It demonstrates that knowledge, or it gets them to see that knowledge gets them a plan, but nuance gets them a result. So once you've shown them the current path, expose them to some sort of nuance that makes your part of the plan work. So I'll give you an example. Non-nuanced way of giving advice is caloric deficit equals weight loss. Done. Understood. But let's go over some more nuance. If you've dieted before, your metabolism probably slowed down or adapted. What used to be a caloric deficit for you probably isn't one anymore. Accounting for this allows you to see how much you're actually burning and eating. And when you don't, you plateau. So what are we doing here? All we're doing is we're introducing nuance. It's you know what to do, right? But there is something else there. When people see this, they implicitly understand that they have the knowledge, but they lack the nuance. And this exposure to nuance creates desire because it makes people lean in and ask you the golden question, which is, what else do you know? So expose them to the nuance that they're not seeing, that they haven't been exposed to. That's step two. So why hasn't this worked for you? Why is this happening to you? The nuance has the answer. And then you present or invent your tool. So you come up with a name, because all my names are made up. Offer shell, Whalebait, this is all made up, right? So you make up or present a tool you already have that bridges the gap between their current state and a state that accounts for that nuance. So back to the same example. Non-nuance, caloric deficit equals weight loss. Nuance, your metabolism adapted. And then you present a tool that bridges the gap, because now they see themselves as there's me now and there's me with the understanding of the nuance. Then you present the tool that bridges that. So our caloric truth session, CTS, gives us the whole picture: where you're at, what to expect, and how to break through your current plateau. And then we're actually accomplishing what needs to happen in a product aware market, which is they're so used to the blue. But through adding nuance and giving it a name with our tool, we're presenting red. Our path is now different because we've demonstrated an understanding of the problem. And then that's when people are like, okay, where do I get this? Right? It makes so much more sense than just saying, look, this person signed up with me and now he is, he's jacked. But you got to present a path so that it won't be scary. Flashlights are persuasive. And a side note on this is much, much easier to sell because you're elevating the tool rather than yourself. So when you sell yourself, it sometimes can feel kind of icky, right? Because it's like my client, and if you sign up with me, and it presents some sort of resistance, it gives the prospect some sort of resistance. But me personally, I don't see myself as I am the guy. I see myself as my tools are the guy. It's, if you see my content, I rarely say my model. I am the one who created this. I say this result in my life, I am grateful to the model that created it. It's a very small distinction. It's a very nuanced distinction, but I'm really hoping that you understand it, that when you sell tools, not only is it easier for you to sell because you're a servant of the tool, not yourself, but also it lowers resistance in the prospect, because then it's like, well, now you're highlighting the tool, not yourself. Hopefully that makes sense. I'll give you three additional examples of the same path we just took, of presenting a plan that they're used to, adding nuance that demonstrates that you understand this better, and presenting or inventing a tool that bridges that gap. So step one, introduce a common plan. In my world, that's people go from they don't know you to they follow you to they're a lead to they're a client, right? Very simple. Now, once I've presented the common ground, then I start to add nuance on how I do each step. And this is a skill. So you're going to get better at articulating how you do things. Here's an example that obviously supports my bias, and I came up with it because I had a lot of time to prepare. But it's not easy. It's not as easy. You eventually get better at it. So, non-nuanced. If you post relevant content to attract like-minded thinkers. Now I introduce mine, which is you don't really want like-minded thinkers. You want people with the problem you solve. You can change your mind later. Like-minded thinkers, there's another word for that. That's called peers. It's not prospects. So you don't really want that. Another non-nuanced statement. Build an audience by posting valuable content, right? Then I introduce my nuance. Value as a content strategy is flawed because it attracts people who expect free stuff, aka fish. Whereas insight attracts people who want to know why things are happening to them before delving into the tactics, also known as whales. That creates nuance, right? And then people go, huh, okay, there's something different here. It's not blue, it's red. Non-nuanced. Turn people into clients with an irresistible offer. Nuance. The goal isn't client acquisition. It's LTV extraction, because the part of the audience that is client material is minimal. You would make more money if you saw yourself more as, how do I extract the most out of everybody who's actually willing to pay, more than if you focus on client acquisition. Client acquisition is a flawed goal. So then people go, okay, what else do you know, right? And we all have this. We just need to articulate it better. And that's what I help people with. And three, once you've introduced the nuance, is you present or invent a tool that accounts for it. And that's when I introduced value versus insight, whale bait, the offer show. And so I have successfully turned my flashlight on. I have demonstrated that I have a path towards the diamond. And it's not just scary because I have actually thought this through. And the nuance has created desire to work with me or you. So this is when you introduce your tools. A lot of them are cringe and they're all made up. It doesn't matter. Because if you're willing to lead, people are willing to follow. Now, if you're blanking out completely and you're like, I don't know how to come up with these tools, you can ask the big idea prompt to extract tools from you. And that's the reason why I designed them. Like, you can use it. However, I do recommend you start by yourself. Developing your own tools is one of the most fun parts of this business. And it'll fulfill you a lot, and it feels amazing when you craft something and you're like, this thing works and I came up with it. So I do recommend you start with it on your own. But if you need it, the big idea prompt's there for you. Now, I want to make hopefully you understand why this is called touch as well. We use touch because we want to make stuff tangible. We want to literally see ourselves as I'm selling screwdrivers and I'm selling chargers and I'm selling templates and tools, because things that are tangible and people can see in their brains more than just kind of conceptualize, but actually see and touch, they're more persuasive than things that they can't. That's why I'm not a fan of calling things a protocol, a blueprint, a system, because what does that mean, right? It could be a tool and a lot of people use it, right? But it's hard to conceptualize. It's easier when you turn things into touchable assets. Again, you're not a coach, you're not a consultant, you're not a mentor. You do those things, but you really are a person with tools. Now, it matters to, it's worth it for us to make the distinction between what a tool is and what a model is. So for example, this right here is a pizza. This right here is technically, you could make the argument that it is a smaller pizza. But you wouldn't go to somebody and say, hey man, can I get 1/8 of a pizza? Like, it's weird, right? It's more useful to create a distinction between the part and the whole. So we call it a slice. Unique mechanisms have the same thing. It's useful to make a distinction between the part and the whole when it comes to unique mechanisms. So if you go right here, a unique mechanism can be a collection of other unique mechanisms. So for example, the offer shell is one here, one small one. Whale bait is another one. Value versus insight is another one. And the protagonist post is another one. And they're all inside of the bigger unique mechanism, which is the Lexing Cash model. But it makes more sense for our purpose today to create some sort of distinction between pizza and slice. See it as parts of a whole, because different mechanisms and different tools create different outcomes and speak to different segments. So for our purpose today, just to nail everything into one sentence, is a model is made up of tools. So I'd like you to see it like this. There could be mechanisms within mechanisms, but that's not as useful. It's like 1/8 of a pizza. So let's just think of, there's tools and there's models. A model is made up of tools. As a rule of thumb, and why it's useful to make this distinction, is demonstrating what your tools can do or have done is a great way to create customers, because people like buying templates, they like buying chargers, screwdrivers, they enjoy it, right? And they do it often. But demonstrating what your model can do is a great way to create clients. And this is why it's useful to make that distinction. However, both are some of the most persuasive assets you will ever develop. If you can make up a model, it's like you're having a flashlight with you all the time. All you have to do is just turn it on, direct people there, and see, like, hey, see, this is what we do. And it's much more persuasive than a quote unquote irresistible offer, because it's scary, right? Again, flashlights are persuasive. So for me, I just call this the Lexing Cash model. But again, this is easy for me to say because I've been doing this thing for years, right? The problem is that all the persuasive assembling tools into a model takes a lot of work, right? Because you have to be like, what are the individual components of these? Like this slows a lot of people down. For example, insight-based content, whale bait, and the offer shell, these three all existed before the likes and cash model actually clicked, which happened 4 months later. If you see my protagonist post, I started introducing people to my concepts like on December, and the likes and cash model was born in July. So it took me very long in order for like actually put them through. And that's okay. Because I don't advise for the purpose of this bootcamp for you to start with your model. It is hard and it's something you're gonna need to develop as you go. So don't start with your model unless you already have some developed tools that your audience responds well to. If you already have them, then by all means, this is one of the most profitable pieces of content you'll ever create. If you don't, then just start with one tool. Just start with your caloric truth calculator or whatever it was. Because one tool is enough as a starting point to strengthen your brand. Later, when you get more clarity on the model and you go, because your protagonist post has already declared that this is a journey and you're learning as you go, you can assemble them into a model. But you can do that later. If you don't have a model, then just start with one tool, and that's okay. And the asset we're going to be creating is the tool post and the model posts. Actually, this could be an or, depending on where you're at. These are my second most profitable posts, close second to the protagonist. And it walks people through how your tools or your model works. So what outcome has this created for you or for others? What's the current path that people are taking to create this outcome? What's the nuance that makes your specific method or tool work for you? And do you have a tool for that? If so, where can I get it? So an example of a mini sales letter for the, actually, what was the name? Caloric Truth Session, right? So number one, what outcome has this created for you or others? You take a picture and you look jacked. Like, man, I'm so glad that I got here. What's the current path to creating this outcome? Everybody tells you that you need to do caloric deficit to lose weight. And that is absolutely true. But what happens is your metabolism adapts. So your caloric deficit today is not the same one it was 3 months ago. And this is why plateaus occur. So that's why I have this thing called the caloric truth sessions. And this is where we nail down the truth on, okay, where are you at now? How much are you eating? How much are you burning? And this is the tool that we use as the plateau buster. Now, how much more likely is it that, let's say you did this with sales calls, that you branded your stuff as a caloric truth session, then, hey, reach out, get in touch to see, and we can get you a plan. It's very different, right? The other ones feels iffy because they're gonna be like, well, you're a barber. Of course, you're gonna recommend that I get a haircut. The other one is you're a tool guy. It's they have a problem, you have a tool. It's a much more natural transition. And that's why this is called touch. So some examples of tool posts is, I've included some here. You probably have already seen me post about this, the 41-minute workday. I finished my workday in 41 minutes. It's because of the offer shell. The nuance is it's easier to sell access than offers, and therefore you can buy it here. Done. Right? That's just an individual tool. But there's also model posts in which you have your tools and you put them together into one big pizza. And these are the heavy ads. Like this is the big boy of persuasion. You post this thing, it's fantastic. Here's an example of mine. Again, the second most profitable post I ever made. Rashid, I think this might be the most profitable he has ever made. So you can check that example there. He's also explaining his model along the way. But again, if you don't have that, then just start with a few tools because this does get revealed as you go. These things take time. And again, a brand is a living being. It grows. And you shouldn't try to get it right on the first time because if not, that's just not how it works. And that is it. So that is the third asset for the whale brand. Create a tool or a model post that will frame you as the guy with the plan, as the safe option. Because this makes you so much more persuasive and it aligns you with how people buy. People don't buy coaches. They don't even buy coaching. They buy tools, at least at first. So create your tool and model post. This is the one that's due for, well, whenever you want, right? But the idea is that you get all 5 posted and then your brand increases as we go so that we can have a more productive conversation at the end of this bootcamp. But for today, the tool or model post will do. So glad to help you with your own or answer some questions regarding to yours. So let us begin. I recommend you watch this instead of have the doc. It's gonna be easier. So 4 out of 5. Taste. What is your taste like? So when you have a whale brand, most people who buy your offer, you will notice that they already decided they will buy it before actually buying it. The offer didn't make them buy more than a bridge makes a person cross a river. It's necessary, right? But ultimately, the person needed some sort of motivation to move on their own. And a whale brand is what creates that motivation for a person to move on their own. The offer was kind of just the enabler, but there was something else driving that. And that is your brand being closer to you. Since your whale brand is based on you, making yourself more desirable is often as important as making the quote unquote main offer more desirable. In other words, and for the purpose of today, you don't have one offer, you have 2. So brands look at stuff as separate, as I have a brand and I have an offer. We, for our purpose of today, we're going to look at it as we have 2 offers. We have ourselves. We got to get people to buy into ourselves, into our world, our aesthetic, and our taste. And then we have the actual offer. So there's a bunch of tools in the classroom that you can see on number 2. Today, we're going to be focusing on number 1. How do we make you offer 1 more desirable? Because that's what's going to make the motivation for people to cross the bridge on their own. A simple way to make your offer 1, which is you, more desirable is to constantly expose people to your taste. So, for example, Rome, the city, and the Roman tourist agents don't need to tell you how great Rome is. One just needs to see the taste of the Romans and the sale is done on its own. You see the Sistine Chapel, you see the Colosseum, you see the food, and you're like, yeah, I'm bought into the thing. They don't need to tell you like this is the itinerary or not. You just need to know that you're gonna have a taste of this. And the source of it is that I am a very happy customer of Roman tourism. I like it a lot. So when you expose people to your taste, that does a lot of the selling needed. People who just focus on the offer kind of miss that. The offer it matters, yeah, but it also matters that you make yourself desirable. And you do that by exposing people to your taste. It gives you 2 extra benefits. The first one is that it pre-sells people on your offer because it lets them know what to expect. So if you're here, you know a lot of the things that I believe in, and you know a lot of my taste. You know that, for example, I'm not going to recommend you build a 15-person team. You know that I'm not going to recommend you record talking head videos that you hate. And you know that I'm not going to recommend probably sales calls if Google Docs will do. Right? You already know this because I've exposed you to my taste. This is what I do, right? This is my world. So it pre-sells people into working with you. And it lets them know what to expect, which makes the other offer 2, easier to buy. And the second one is it makes you more desirable. And the kind of the trite phrase of people buy coaches, not coaching is true. And that makes exposing your taste so that people will buy you a great use of your time. So today we focus on that. And we're going to do so with a little asset right here called your taste book. So it's basically the thing we're going to be filling out today. Your taste has a few components that we're going to first put together, and then I'm going to show you how to paste them. So right here, you can see we got characters. characters in your world. Tools, what behaviors you put in sticks and pedestals. Memes, nailed on Nathan, likes in cash. Language, how do you talk? Props and settings, side quests and movement and open loops. These all contribute to the non-tangibles of the brand. These all make you more desirable. They're not hard assets, they're more like soft assets. It's things that they make you more desirable so that the second offer is easier to sell and buy. So we're going to be filling out this as we go. And it's called taste because we're exposing people to your taste, your aesthetic. So we start with characters, and I'd like everybody to go here and make a copy of this and be filling it out as you go. It's going to be easier so that you're going to leave with something tangible. Even if you're watching the recording or you're here live, it's going to be easier for you so that you can leave with something tangible. So make a copy. We're going to start with characters. And I think we should do something like this. I'm going to put a 30-second timer or so on every single one so that it's going to be, so that, you're going to have some time to fill it out because it's more fun like this. So one is, who are the characters in your world? So you've seen me talking about Abuelita, the Ukrainian, Lawyer Steve, my brother, my friends, Christian. So these are all characters that I introduce, and I could just say my wife. I could just say my lawyer. But when you give it a name and you put them as a character in your story, it has a different kind of pull, and it makes people go like, okay, but like, what's happening here? There's a story here that is being told. So showing how these people are included and they add to the story gives it sticking power. So for the people that are in your world all the time, try to give them names. It could be their actual name, or it could be an alias, like I have for these people. So I'm gonna give you 1 minute, and you write down yours. Okay, so your characters. Including them in your story as you tell it gives it strength. It's not just my friend, it's Christian, right? 2, your tools. So what are the tools that you use? This, like we covered yesterday, see yourself as you're a tool shop more than a coach or a consultant or a mentor. When you name your tools, it creates also that curiosity on what does this do? Why is this called differently? Why does this have a proper name? So even if it's just called the ultimate DM sales template, it doesn't matter. But just call it something so that people will know that there is some sort of thought behind it. And I'd like you to think of when people click on your profile and they see your stuff, it's almost like they're entering the wardrobe in Narnia. Like they should be exposed to a lot of things that feel like, oh, this is a new world. That's why it's called world building, right? So you enter Narnia and it's snowy. And then there's the Mr. Tumnus, and then there's Peter and Lucy and Susan, right? And there's I think is the Winter Queen or the Ice Queen or so on. But we're literally building a world. When you build this world, that drives your aesthetic forward, which makes people want to be in it. Or at least it creates that polarization that makes people want to get out of it. But still, both serve you. Number 2, which are your tools? So there's the ring in Lord of the Rings, right? And there's I don't know, the bat suit and the Batmobile. They all have these tools. You notice how I don't just say my process. I call it the workshop funnel, which then links to the offer shell. That gives it strength. 3, sticks and pedestals. So there's this marketing tactic called head on a stick. So when you put a head on a stick, it's basically saying, look at this person. They acted in a way that I do not tolerate. And then you put that head on a stick as a symbol that this is not how we do things here. My beef with head on a stick is it makes you look reactive when you call out somebody else by name. If you say John Doe did this and when putting his head on that stick, it makes it look, it gives a bad taste. But I'm a big fan of putting behaviors on a stick. When you name behaviors of things that you do not want in your world. So a clear example of this is Nail Down Nathan, the guy that's always nailing down his content, nailing down his offer, who needs clarity on whatever. He never nails anything down. Or actually, he's always nailing things down, so he never makes money. Like I've had people say, dude, I don't want to be nailed down, Nathan. This is me. Let's work together. Like, of course, no problem. Like these things actually work. It's putting behaviors on sticks, which also can be memes. This is by Klein. So he said, I created a character as you suggested, Tino il Titubante, also known as the one who always has doubts, inspired by a guy who spent 2 years and a half thinking about joining. What happened? He joined the program and posted, I'm Tino. Like these things matter. Every post you make is it's you showing your audience how to treat you. So when you put behaviors on a stick, you're training your audience to know we don't do these things here. Bandwidth Brian is another one of mine. When I said Bandwidth Brian is a person he doesn't have the bandwidth to implement anything. But the reason why he doesn't have the bandwidth, it's because he's always learning, he's never doing. Of course, you're never going to have the bandwidth because you're trying to consume the whole internet. It doesn't work like that. You got to move. So put behaviors on a stick and invent things that will allow you to, a second benefit of this, pre-solve objections so that you won't have them. Because when you mock things and when you make them funny like this, it drives the point forward and people actually conform to the behavior you want. The antithesis of it is, what behavior are you going to put on a pedestal? Just, it's your identity. It's what you embody. So what do you call the person who does everything that the characters that fail don't? So create those two behaviors you can put sticks and behaviors you can put on pedestals. Give them names. It's more fun this way. Memes. So memes are silly little things that reveal a little bit about the way you believe. So me, for example, I am very anti-Apple Watch. And if you, this is so silly, but if you look up the things I've said about Apple Watches, I'm like, I refuse to wear an Apple Watch. You'll hear me say likes are cash before you see me wearing an Apple Watch. Good morning to everyone except Apple Watch wearers. So creating these memes it makes you sticky. Somebody who does this really well is Eddie. Let me see if I can find Eddie. Him. So Eddie has this thing called he calls himself the Watermelon King. So if you look up his post, people will call him the Watermelon King because he's always talking about watermelon, 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 and people will tag him on two things every man needs, cash flow and watermelon, 150 likes. And he talks about watermelon. If you don't enjoy watermelon, we can't be friends. And it's kind of his thing. And then he plugs in this list below. So memes that reveal things that you believe in or that you like that are kind of silly, they have big staying power. Another one is the fist. So this is a meme I created, as in when somebody sends me a promise that doesn't meet the meaning test, I'll send them the fist. So somebody sent me, how do you get your email sales potential? Fist. This doesn't pass the meaning test. When we first worked with this person, we used this calculator to estimate his opportunity. Fist. It doesn't pass it. And then he said, the calculator we used to find 200K a month in lost revenue. Now it does. So creating these few memes of things around your world, things that you believe in, right? Like some people have soy milk on it. Some people have, oh, I don't do machines, I just do free weight squats, right? Whatever. They're powerful because people start remembering you and things outside of work. So what are some of the memes you can include? Chris Bumstead does this really well. He has on his diet videos, he has, you know how it goes, guys. You eat shredded lettuce to get shredded. So it's kind of his thing, right? Shredded lettuce to get shredded. And then I think I saw it in another bodybuilder's page. He has the victory breakfast. And the victory breakfast is just oats and protein, but he calls it the victory breakfast. And that's his thing, right? He's me. Some people say that they need cold plunges and whatnot. You can mock that. Some people say they need some things in their industry. You can mock that. Let's get on a call, Lenny. Let's hop on a call, Harry. So memes are create taste as in, we don't do these things here. Language. So what are common names that you treat as proper names? Things that mean more to you. So for me, it's whale, fish, big idea, protagonist, model. So for example, some people create the distinction between your core supplements or your core supplement stack. Some people, I was reading about this guy, Eric Helms, and he has the default diet. So to him, to everybody else, it's just, okay, my default diet. It's a with lowercase d, right? But for him, it is a thing. So he calls it a proper name, the default diet with like capital. So what are some of yours? What are some things that you call and mean different things to you? And this is your language. How do you speak? You could also invent terms here. There's another fitness coach that he calls people who are always kind of trying to lose weight, but they never do it. He calls them the perma cutters. They're permanently cutting. And I thought that was brilliant. So, what are some things that are proper nouns in your world so that you can sprinkle in when you talk? Props and settings. So, what are some of the things and tools that you use in your everyday life? So, for me, I use my iPad a lot. I you've seen me talk about my Casio. I'll show you here. So if you go, like I'm big on my Casio. So the other day I said, guys, absolute tragedy. My Casio is not working anymore. So I just posted it. It's a tool that I use. You can also add like a, a picture of your setup that like these are your props. You do things and you use things. So in every world, again, there's tools, the ring, there's the Batmobile, there's the kryptonite. So what are some of the props that you use in your world? And as well as settings. So for me, I have the gym. I move around at the gym. If you watch The Office, you know that there is the conference room. There's also the where people like refreshment room, I think, or where they have lunch. There's Michael Scott's office. There's the parking lot. There's Michael Scott's house. So what are settings that you frequent? And then you can turn it into a thing. It's like, okay, I'm hitting the gym today. And then you take a picture of it and then people can see what your world is like. Again, you're bringing them inside of Narnia. So what are some props that you use often that you could share? And what are some settings that you frequent often? Side quests. So what interests do you have that are not the main thing you post about? So for example, the other day I went on a trip, right? I went to Montenegro and I made sure everybody knew. So if you see my stories from these days, it was all about I'm on the flight and then I'm landing and then I got to my hotel and then I started climbing a mountain and I made sure it was like kind of this narrative that people followed. So what are some of yours? Like, what are some of the side quests that you are interested in? Here's another example. I've got some investment with pigs for with my friend. So I got some side businesses in Guatemala, right? Another side quest that I do. I have some certain fitness goals that are important to me. So then I'm updating people on that, right? I'm posting it and I'm sharing it to people. And so when you introduce what other interests that you have, what are some side quests that are interesting about this character, you people just fall more in love with you because they understand that, okay, you're just not a one-dimensional person. Like you're not, and we shouldn't treat social media like we are. So what are some side quests maybe that you can update people on? Again, it's not the main thing, but it's on the side so that people could follow along. What are some of your side quests and things that matter to you that you're currently pursuing? Fitness is an easy one. Business is another. Some people have this meditation streak. They're like, okay, day 37, and it works for them. Movement and open loops. So moving objects get more attention than still objects. If an object is in motion, it is easier to notice. So if you see the people who often have a really strong brand, they're always in the next thing. They're always developing something. Like I'm going to this place and I'm going to this goal and I'm trying this new thing. So what is happening is they're always moving and they're always creating an open loop. So it's really hard to pin down, which is very different from others who are like always in the same room, always have the same message. But when you're developing stuff and you're constantly growing, then people stick to you because they see that you're moving. People like it when you're always moving because it's easier to pay attention. So making a note when you create of where are you, what's happening, what's next, it makes people pay attention more than if you just said like this is what's happening now, but also like what is next? What is the open loop that you're trying to that you can open so that people will stay in there? So I often end my email saying, okay, so tomorrow maybe I'll do that. Next month, I'm doing this. And then at the end of the year, I'm planning for this. Next summer or next whatever, this is what is often the trend. What are you going to do? So I'm constantly open loops to give people a reason to come back. So there's an example. Just climb to the top of Mount San Nievdo in Montenegro. Meanwhile, Nail Down Nathan is still nailing down what route to take, right? You can see a combination here. So it's like it shows movement and it also brings people into the world. This is creating that brand effect. It could be as elaborate as you having an event in which you travel and you do things, or it could be simpler as just exposing people and adding a picture of your world. So philosophies sell more than promises. And I made a post that has absolutely nothing to do with the image. It doesn't matter because just by adding the image, you bring people into the world. It's a little small, little called like a two-factor authentication thing you can do to make sure your brand is stronger. Like take pictures, you see in your camera roll, and even if the post has nothing to do with it, it's not extra for you to include something about your world because it kind of does have something to do with you, which is you. So adding some sort of world building aspect to it, it doesn't cost you anything, yet it does pay dividends. So movement and open loops. Right now, in your world, what are you cooking? What's happening? What's the phase you're in? What's today's episode? If we're filming a show, what is happening? What is the plot of the You episode today? Where are you? What's happening? What's next? So try to answer those things as in, what's happening in today's episode in my world? Okay, now I'm going to explain to you why all this stuff matters. So if you got to this point, you've completed your taste book. I'm going to explain to you why putting all these components, even though it may have looked a little bit disorganized, why it matters now that we are going to put them together. So we're all in the attention economy. To get more attention, get good at crafting narratives around the facts that happen in your life. This sentence needs explanation. So facts is different to narratives. A fact tells you what happened. A narrative says this is what is happening. Facts versus narratives is why people watch today's morning news but not yesterday's morning news. What is happening now grabs much more attention than what happened yesterday. So, getting the custom of reporting things as they happen rather than curating the story after it is over. This will make your facts get more attention as they will have a narrative around it and have that live component that people can follow. This is why I personally struggle when people ask me, what's your content strategy? because the answer is actually whatever is happening that day. The answer is I'm just reporting my life, right? And it's important that you understand the difference between facts and narratives because when you craft a narrative around a fact, you make it much more enticing. You make people pay much more attention, and therefore you make it easier to sell. So I'll give you a really, really clear example of this. So, a fact, I removed the group coaching tier of cash creators from the normal market, right? I took it off the market. That is kind of dry. If I just say it, it's like, okay, whatever. What makes you different from every other guru? But notice what happens when you add a narrative and when you include taste components into it. Notice how different it feels. Instead of saying, I'm removing the group coaching tier, I say, I've been on my 100K a month journey for over a year now, and I've completed it. I'd like to dedicate more time then to my family, abuelita, Ukrainian, my move to Spain, and to my loved ones. And so I've got to say no to some things and say yes to other things. And this is why I'm removing this tier. The last chance to join happens in September because I'm starting to make my move in October. Notice how different it feels. Notice how much more depth and like strength this has than just saying, hey, 9 copies left, right? Because anybody can do that. Anybody can copy this. All these tactics are easy, but nobody can copy your taste and nobody can copy your narrative. Now that you have your taste book, here's what you can do. You can grab that, and then for every fact that happens in your life, you can use your taste book and a narrative as a way to sprinkle things in so that people will pay more attention to it. And then you're accomplishing what your taste wanted to accomplish, which is you're making offer one, you, more desirable. This seems like a small deal to somebody who doesn't get it. So I'm hoping that you do get it. There's an example from a mentor. He said he split tested 2 ads. Ad A said, I have a goal of making this much amount of money. And it did okay. The only thing he tested and changed in post B was I have a goal of making this amount of money so that I can provide a better life for my wife and kids. And the other one was better by like 400%. Adding these small components, they do add up. So adding your taste, characters, memes, brand, pedestals, sticks, these all add up because now you have a fact and you can basically make it not boring by including a narrative and by including your taste around it. It makes everything so much better. It makes every dish tastier, which is conversely also the danger of taste. A narrative and taste is more like a condiment. Like all these things we came up with today, they're not the main driver of sales, they're condiments. What I mean by that is add a little bit and it makes a dish great. If you overdo it, you ruin it. And not every dish needs it. If you overdo narratives and taste, you will also trap yourself. You'll think more about what's important to them instead of the real question, which is what's important to me. This will hurt you personally and make you lose your main character energy because it will make you reactive to the market rather than proactive because your source of content will come from somebody else's opinions more than your own opinion. So treat this, and an easy way that people have found is effective for them is write, create, do like you've always done. Keep writing the same way and keep it consistent on your zone of genius. But before you click post, take 30 seconds to review your taste book and so you can sprinkle things in. So that instead of you saying, today I made an offer, you can say, today, what right before or right after breakfast with El Chamaco, which is maybe your kid, I made an offer. And then it symbolizes that you have a kid and you put attention to them, stuff like that, right? So keep writing the same way you've always been doing it, but add this 2-factor authentication so that before you press post, you make a conscious decision to let's sprinkle some salt in this dish to make it better. An easy way so that you won't enter the narrative danger zone is to only use stuff that already happened. See yourself, and this advice by Joe Rogan is really good. See yourself as a third-person reporter. You're not creating content. You're putting together a documentary on yourself. So tell the truth, but make the truth fascinating. Also, one thing here is everybody has different preferences for this. There are some people who are totally okay with saying where they live exactly and sharing pictures of their family. I don't. Like I I try to purposely kind of move away from a lot of some locations. And I never share faces of my family because I'm just not comfortable with it. And you can draw that line as well, right? Again, it's your brand, right? You treat it, it's your taste. Share as much as you're comfortable with sharing, but do share something because these things do add up. They do make people want to work with you. It's just intangible. Now, putting it all together, unlike the other whale bootcamp assets, Taste doesn't have a single post. It's not like you have a protagonist post about taste. It's much more like eating. It's not something you do once and then that's it and then it's over. It's something you must keep doing. It's something you keep maintaining. Taste is something that you keep adding to your content from now on. So hopefully today there's going to be like a before and after. Before where you just share facts and after where you share narratives around your facts and add your taste to it. Taste won't be the main driver of sales. Like I'm not gonna say that taste is gonna get you more sales than your model or your offer, right? But it is important that it's there because it does add up. So I personally prefer to make sure I'm exposing people to some part of my taste at least 3 times a week. I post about my settings. I post about you can overdo characters, so maybe not as often. But if it fits, then maybe one about a character, maybe one about my morning coffee, about my walk. I have my Euro walk. I call it the Euro walk. It's just a walk, but I call it my Euro walk. And I like to do these things at least 3 times a week and then kind of forget about it. Because this is something that's like investing in the S&P 500. It's more like compounding. Something you put in there and then you forget about it. But it does end up paying dividends if you do it consistently, if you expose people to your taste. So the whale asset of today is just create one demonstration of your taste. Introduce one character into the mix. One tool, one behavior on a stick or pedestal, one meme, capitalize one word of your language, prop settings, side quests, or movement and open loops. Use any of these and post about it so that you're going to start bringing people into this is what my Narnia looks like. Set a weekly minimum and commit to it. This is actually, if I'm being real, this is really easy. This is not a hard thing to do. Adding a picture of your coffee is not hard. Taking a picture of your workstation or your laptop, it's not hard. So 3 times a week is extremely doable for a lot of people. And commit to it because eventually this is going to end up paying dividends when you start exposing people to your taste. Let's roll. Last one of the whale brand, C. So at the core of all fears, the root of all fears, it's the fear of death. We try to escape death by chasing safety, and this is some primal desire. That's why, in a way, we get a career, we start a business, we want to create predictable MRR, we want to have security. Why? Because we're trying to avoid death. And that is the big one. We are chasing at its core safety. A whale brand understands this, and that's why one of the main pillars is that a whale brand can offer and why they are a whale brand in the first place. It's because they create that feeling of safety in people. If people can find safety in you, they will often let themselves be influenced by you. So creating not only like people say it's important to be the best in the market and the only in the market. Yes, of course, it's important to be the best option. Yes, of course, but it's also important to be the safe option. A big chance there's a lot of money in trying to be the safe option. But conveying safety in real life is extremely hard because then you have to be in a decisive and kind of this assertive mindset all the time. It's really hard to do, right? But in social media, you can convey that feeling of safety all the time. And it allows you to be the safe option because you can just post things that make people feel safe. And then once you're not in that safe kind of mindset, then you just don't post. And then you have a 100% hit rate, right? That's why you can do these things in social media. And an effective way to communicate the safety that will increase your brand strength is through taking risk. So it's kind of the opposite. A good way to create safety is to take on risk. And an easy way to see this is who communicates here more safety? Who would you rather be influenced by, A or B? So for the people listening, A is somebody who's like on your side of crossing a bridge and there's like, oh yeah, just cross, you go first. And option B is the guy is in the middle of the bridge and he says, yeah, cross, so the bridge is safe. We trust B more. Why? Because he has skin in the game, because he has taken risk. But nowadays, people don't take a lot of risk. They give out free value and free advice and sure, like steal this strategy, but they're not doing the strategy themselves. They're not incurring the risk themselves. Therefore, they don't transmit that safety. And in there is your opportunity. Because if you're willing to take risk, and if you're smart about it, it's not that risky. But if you're willing to take some risk, then you will transmit that feeling and people will let themselves be influenced by you. Our good rule of thumb is that the more risk you take yourself, the more safety you convey to others. And a simple way to take risk and communicate safety is through what I call a thesis post. Which thesis of yours have you taken a risk on? What do you believe in that you have or are willing to put yourself into risk on? So I posted one recently, which was, I believe, and this is one of my theses, that group coaching is going to die. And I'm banking on this. That's why I closed Cash Creators group tier to the public. Like you can't join it anymore. And I'm taking risk, both socially, because if I'm wrong, it's embarrassing, and financially, because if I'm wrong, I make less money. Yet that is exactly what I want. Because then I communicate safety. I communicate that I am the guy in the arena, the middle of the bridge. And therefore, you can trust me because if I fail, like if this is wrong, I'm fucked too. And that's what you want. You want to communicate that sort of safety through risk. So after I posted that video on why I think it's gonna die, here's some of the DMs I got. So somebody texted me, I've seen the same thing, lower ticket membership and high ticket, whatever. Would you be up for doing a guest workshop in my community? And this is a guy with a lot of money. And I'm like, yes, of course, I'd be really okay with doing a workshop in your community. Let's do it. Somebody else texted me, curious to see how this goes. My office hours suck. No one shows up, and if someone does, it's awkward. I think a pure access to my stuff and one-on-one tier would do for me as well. And then we went on and we worked on this. So the DMs that you get and the inbound that you get after you have proven that you've taken risk, it's much higher quality because people feel safe with you. They're much more open with you. So a lot of the defenses that they usually have in the sales process go away. And you can do this and you can transmit these feelings that are people's core desires through what I call thesis posts. And it's not the thesis post, it is a thesis post. Like it could be the thesis, as in like, this is what I'm gonna bet my life on. You know, Brian Johnson style, he's like, I'm gonna live until I'm 200, right? It could be, but it doesn't have to. Simply proving that you've taken some sort of personal risk on something is enough to communicate safety. You don't even need an outcome. Like you just need to prove that you've taken some sort of risk. So a great example of this is somebody who has gotten in shape and somebody who might say, hey, look at my six pack. Cool. Or somebody who has said, I believed in veganism and I dedicated myself to being vegan and this is what I got. Okay, then he's taken some risk, right? It could be to that extreme or it could be to the less extreme, which is I'm dedicating myself to doing an hour every day of this, or every day I'm going to stick to this. And you're taking risk. because you have a thesis. And once you have a thesis, people are gonna buy into it because you've proven I am in the arena, I'm taking the risk too. So your thesis post basically responds, which thesis have you taken a risk on? And that is what you should answer on yours. So here's a few examples of what that could be. The easy one is, what do you see? What do you observe? So you're noticing the market now, you're noticing the trends now. What do you see? And then you put yourself in front of it and say, I see this, I observe this, the world doesn't see it right now, but I am going to take this action, and you do. So for me, this was why I took my group coaching off the market. And that's what got my DMs over there, which is risk. People like it when you take risks because they don't have to do it. And then you suddenly get this level of authority that people don't. 2, what will happen? What's your thesis for the future? If you took a crystal ball and you took people to the future, what would they see? So somebody's saying world is moving high end or dirt cheap, in between nothing of value. So how can you get ahead of that? So if people talk about what will happen, you can talk about what won't happen. Hey, everybody says that the world is going to end in 2012. I don't think it will. And this is why I'm going to do this, right? So for me, if you watch this video, this is me saying, I know that the world is going to change regarding to AI, but here's my thesis on what I think will not. Big ideas are bigger than AI. And that's why I'm basing my business off that instead of something else. So I'm taking a risk on, hey, actually, this place is safe. The island is not going to drown. We're going to be okay. And that's why I'm building my house on it. Where are we going? That's a new one. So Felix, I can't find it. But if you look up Felix, pay attention to when he launches Neo. Neo is his AI stuff. And he basically says, I think AI is making humans dumber. Everybody's outsourcing their decision making to it. Neo is my attempt at using AI to make humans smarter so that we actually will be augmented and not spiritually sedated and intellectually sedated by AI. So he has a thesis and he's like, this is where the world is going. This is what I'm doing about it. And you have to respect that. You have to respect it when somebody takes actually like I'm taking risk here, because you'll see that a lot of the brands that are weak are also brands that are not taking any risk. But brands that are strong, they usually have enormous amounts of risk associated to it. Man in the arena. So let's say you want to accomplish a goal. This guy is Nick Bear, for example. He has a supplement company and some fitness products, and he's gonna run an Ironman using his stuff. So he's gonna prove to people that, hey, like, look at me, I'm doing the thing. I'm using my own stuff. I'm literally taking my own medicine. What's happening today? So this is by Dan. The death of personal brand and the future of creative work. So you can see how he made that transition. He went from just building a personal brand, kind of like everybody, and then he transitioned to creative work. Like this is the new person, the one person business model, and so on. So he has a view, he has an opinion of what you should and shouldn't do, and then he became it, so that people will be safe on following him. You can also do some sort of mini documentary. So this guy says you don't need to do a lot of stuff to really get shredded. All you really need to do is do 1 hour of a daily walk, and I will prove it to you. And for 30 days, this guy, Paul Revelia, he gets on the treadmill and he documents what it's like to walk for an hour a day. And at the end, he shows his results, right? Because that's his thesis. He says, there's so many avenues to losing weight. This is mine and it's safe. And I'm going to prove to you that it's safe because I'm going to literally walk it. So there's many ways to go about this, but the really big answer or question you want to answer with your post is, which thesis have you taken a risk on? Because this demonstrates safety, and safety cures the biggest fear people have, which is at its core fear of death. Everybody at the end wants to feel safe, Nobody likes instability. Nobody likes not being in a stable position. And if you can provide that through you showing that you have taken risk, then your brand will be stronger because they will follow you because you're taking risk while other people are not willing to do so. So the last one, the last whale asset, show the risk you've taken with a thesis through your thesis post. Show the risk that you have incurred and demonstrate it to the world so that people will understand, oh, this guy's serious because he's actually taking risk. And that's the last one. It's your thesis post. Now, a quick recap on this is a whale brand needs 5 kinds of posts. 1, protagonist, because it demonstrates leadership and turns you from a coach to a protagonist that people actually pay attention to. 2, your code. It gives people a place to belong and a set of standards to live up to. All humans have a need for belonging. You can provide that through your code. 3, your tools and your model, because it makes your help easier to buy. Because when people have a problem, they don't think, how can I find, let's say they run out of charge. They don't think, where do I find a person with a charger? They think, where do I find a charger? So when you toolify and modelify your stuff, you make it easier to buy because you align it with how people buy. Taste. Your taste post makes you and does your offer more attractive because you're revealing your taste and aesthetic to the world. And last, thesis, because it eases their biggest fear through you. This is a representation of your whale brand now. Once you post these, you will have a pretty complete overview of what your whale brand looks as of August 26, 2025. But this isn't your final form. You're always evolving. And as you evolve, you can use these 5 posts and know that once you grow, once you pivot, once you're in the next stage of your business, life, philosophy, and perspective, your whale brand will evolve with you. These are all tactics. All these do, they're all multipliers. If you multiply anything by 0, it's still 0. And if you multiply anything by the same thing it was before, it's going to be the same thing. As you evolve, you need to show that your brand needs to evolve with you. And these 5 kinds of posts are going to help you do so as you go. So these are the tools, but ultimately they can only be as good as you are.